Actually, I feel a lot better after talking to him. We never went up to him. He came up to us. And actually, I feel pretty good about it. I didn't think I would in the beginning, but I do now.
He walked straight toward them. No podium, no prepared speech, no security wall separating politicians from ordinary people. Just one conversation. Then an Albertan stepped forward and said 4 simple words. Those 4 words captured something that Canadians haven't felt in a very long time, and they may reveal why Canada's political conversation is starting to change. Because what happened at the Calgary Stampede this weekend wasn't supposed to happen. For decades, Alberta has been seen as one of the toughest places for Liberal leaders to win trust. Many people there remain deeply skeptical of Ottawa and of Mark Carney himself. Yet instead of avoiding that reality, Carney walked directly into it. He put on the cowboy hat, shared mini donuts with families, wandered the Midway, sat through the rodeo, visited the livestock barns, and for hours he spoke face-to-face with thousands of Canadians, including plenty who never voted for him and weren't afraid to tell him exactly what they thought. What happened next caught even longtime political observers by surprise. It wasn't cheering, it wasn't outrage, it was something far more powerful. A cautious sense that maybe, just maybe, the conversation between Alberta and Ottawa doesn't have to stay broken forever. So what exactly did that Albertan say? Why are those 4 words now getting so much attention across Canada? And what does this moment tell us about where the country could be heading next? Stay with us, because tonight we're breaking down the Calgary moment everyone is talking about, and why it may have become one of the most important political moments of the summer. To understand why this weekend matters, you need to understand what Alberta represents politically. This is not simply a province that votes Conservative. This is a province that has felt systematically dismissed, misunderstood, and economically punished by Ottawa for decades. The national energy program of the 1980s left wounds that have never fully healed. The carbon tax debates reopened them, and Justin Trudeau's relationship with Alberta was so toxic that it actively fueled a separatist movement that is now pushing for an independence referendum. For a Liberal Prime Minister to walk into that environment without handlers and barriers and prepared scripts, and to actually earn the words cautious optimism from ordinary Albertans, is genuinely remarkable, and the contrast with Trump could not be more stark. Trump holds rallies exclusively for supporters. He speaks only to people who already agree with him. He has never once walked into a hostile crowd and tried to earn their trust through conversation. Carney did exactly that in Calgary, and it worked.
This is Carney's second visit to the Stampede as Prime Minister, and many we spoke with taking jabs at his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, saying they feel Carney is starting to chip away at some of the resentment that's built up over the years.
If you're an Albertan, we've been the outcast forever, so if he can unite Canada, that's awesome.
We have been the outcast forever. That sentence captures 50 years of Alberta's relationship with Ottawa in 6 words. And the fact that the person saying it followed it immediately with, if he can unite Canada, that's awesome, tells you everything about what Carney achieved in Calgary this weekend. He did not convert Alberta. He did not solve 50 years of grievance in an afternoon. He is not naive enough to claim otherwise. But he showed up. He stayed. He listened. And he came to them instead of waiting for them to come to him. In a political world where leaders increasingly speak only to their own tribe, that simple act of showing up to a difficult room is becoming rarer and more valuable than almost any policy announcement. But Carney did not just attend the Stampede for optics. He sat down with CTV Calgary for an exclusive one-on-one interview and answered the hardest questions Alberta has been waiting to ask. The pipeline proposal, the First Nations consultations, the separatist movement, the economics of energy independence. And what he said revealed something important about how he approaches Alberta that is completely different from how his predecessor did. He did not lecture, he did not deflect, he pulled out the numbers.
Well, let me give a bit of context on the TMX pipeline, actually. So TMX pipeline costs about $35 billion, all in, all the capital costs for that. GDP is, our economy is about $16 billion higher than that, because the oil price, the net back to producers is higher because we've got another customer, and obviously we're shipping more oil. So that as a whole gives a couple of things. It gives almost $5 billion in revenue to the Alberta government, royalties plus taxes. It gives over $2 billion of revenue to the federal government, plus we're getting over $1 billion of dividends there. So right now, I roll that up. We got $8 billion for provincial government and federal government, and the return on TMX. Obviously, there's a return to the producers as well. You know, that's a payback a little more than 4.5 years right there on TMX for the full 35, for the economy as a whole. And then when you look at the actual pipeline, you know, the equity return, the EBITDA is running about $3.5 billion. Again, on about 40% equity, $3.5 billion on 10 to 12 billion in investment makes sense. So let's flip. That's a long answer, probably than you wanted, but let's flip into the proposal which we've received 10 days ago from the Alberta government. You know, Pembina is in there for a slug. You know, it's early days and there's due diligence to do. We've got consultations, obviously, with First Nations. We, the proponent, didn't know at the time about our deal with British Columbia, which includes the accession of British Columbia, support for a southern route, preservation of environmental protections on the northern route, but British Columbia being there, options on the carbon market. So a lot of things move at the same time and it'll move forward. But I tell you, I will say as a former investor, as a former banker, that if I have a project that gives me payback for Canada, for Alberta, in 5 years, I'll take it. I'll take that any day.
Did you notice what just happened there? A Liberal Prime Minister stood in Calgary and made a hard-nosed investment case for Alberta's pipeline using rate of return calculations, dividend projections, and payback period analysis. Not environmental concessions, not social license language, not Ottawa talking down to Alberta about what the province should want. Return on investment, payback period, revenue to the Alberta government, revenue to the federal government, dividends on equity. That is how you talk to Alberta. That is how you earn credibility in a province full of people who understand energy economics better than almost anyone in the country. And then he said something even more important, that shifting Canadian oil exports from 98% American dependency to 66% means higher prices for all Alberta's oil, more options, more leverage, more revenue flowing back to Alberta, not to American refineries collecting the spread. Trump wanted Alberta's oil to keep flowing south at discounted prices forever. Carney is building the infrastructure to sell it to the world at full price. That is the real message he delivered in Calgary this weekend.
Canada works. It can work better, and it works better when people are engaged. Canada's worth fighting for. We're fighting for Canada and building up the country. We're stronger when we're together. We just talked about an example. There are many other examples of that. Look, I'll give another, which is we have access as Canadians, as Albertans, we have access to 1.5 billion people through free trade agreements. Those are between the government of Canada and other countries. This year, we're on track to double that number. 3 billion people around the world, we will have access, Albertans will have access through these free trade agreements. We're going to rip all those up and try to rebuild those again. Look, it is a dangerous game here. I've seen it. You and I first met, I think, in the UK before they took a decision, which 10 years later, a ton of strife, 10% of GDP lost, 2/3 of the people would vote a different way, would want to be back part of the European Union, and they can't. So I take a very positive message. My job is to work to make Alberta stronger, to make Canada stronger. We're making real progress on that. Let's keep going. Canada, you know, I grew up in Alberta. Alberta, you know, build not break, lead not leave. I mean, that's the Alberta I know. It's led the country, and it with everything coming together at this time, where Canada's poised to help lead the world, Alberta leading Canada.
Build not break, lead not leave. That is not a politician pandering to a province. That is someone who grew up in Edmonton reminding Albertans of who they actually are when they are at their best. And the Brexit comparison he made in that interview deserves to be heard by every Albertan considering the separatist referendum. He looked the interviewer in the eye and said he was there when Britain made that decision. 10 years later, $1 trillion of economic damage, 10% of GDP lost, 2/3 of British people saying they would vote differently if they could, and they cannot go back. That warning is not fear-mongering. It is the lived experience of someone who watched economic nationalism destroy one of the world's most successful economies from the inside. Trump never goes anywhere he might be challenged. He never sits in front of a journalist from a skeptical region and answers hard questions about pipelines and referendums and investment returns. He never wears someone else's hat and eats their food and walks through their crowd and says, "I grew up here and this place matters to me." Carney did all of that in Calgary this weekend, and the Albertans who met him walked away feeling something they did not expect to feel: heard. That is not a small thing. In the middle of a separatist push and a trade war and a national unity crisis that is actually everything. Subscribe to Canada Line for honest analysis of the stories shaping Canada's future. Turn on notifications, and we will see you in the next one.